Okay, so what if I told you there was a single formula that could explain, well, everything? I don't just mean physics. I mean politics, society, the whole shebang. It sounds pretty wild, I know, but that's the claim of a paper from 2026 called the Taichu formula. And today, we're going to see just how deep this rabbit hole really goes. And I'm not kidding when I say everything. The people behind this paper kick things off with a question that scientists and philosophers have been dreaming about for centuries. What if there's one single, elegant idea that underpins all of reality? From the way a planet orbits a star, all the way to how a society organizes itself. These authors are not messing around. They are claiming this one idea can explain the universe at every single scale you can imagine. We're talking about the dance of subatomic particles all the way up to the grand waltz of galaxies. It's a seriously bold claim, so let's dig in and see what they've got.
Right off the bat, here's the core of their argument, and honestly, it's a bit of a mind-bender. They're proposing that the laws of physics and the principles of political philosophy are, well, they're the same thing, two sides of the same coin. Stuff we think of as purely physical, mass, motion, forces, are in their view just different ways of talking about political ideas like constraint and freedom. This is the radical concept that the entire theory is built on.
So how on earth do you build a bridge between physics and politics? Well, they don't start with complex equations. They start with a really fundamental question from constitutional law. What is the relationship between freedom and power? This philosophical beginning is absolutely key to understanding everything that comes next.
At the heart of it all are two main concepts: freedom, which they call L, and power, which they call P. The big idea is this: whenever pure, absolute freedom enters any kind of system or field, it's forced to split. Part of that freedom gets converted into power, which acts as a constraint, and the rest just keeps on going as a new, now limited form of freedom. You can kind of think of it like a river flowing toward a dam. Some of the water's raw energy is converted into electricity. That's the power. And the rest of the water continues to flow, but now in a controlled, directed way.
Okay, so let's meet the key players in their formula. They use the Greek letter gamma for a photon, which they see as the perfect symbol of pure freedom, just zipping through the universe totally unbothered. H is for the field. Think of it as the stage where all the action happens, like the Higgs field. Now, here's a crucial part. They argue that mass, m, isn't something that stuff just has. No, it's created when freedom interacts with the field. And of course, we have P for power and L for freedom, the two concepts that drive literally everything.
So with those basic ingredients, the authors build their entire universe in just 3 steps. First up, Genesis. A photon, pure freedom, enters a field and instantly creates both power and mass. Then, differentiation. This new mass interacts with space-time, which causes that power to split into 2 opposite forces, attraction and repulsion. And finally, you have the 3 states, where these forces combine in 3 basic ways. What's so amazing about this is how it suggests all the incredible complexity we see out there emerges from this super simple 3-step process.
All right, so we have this simple 3-step process. Sounds nice, but can it actually explain the universe we live in? Well, that brings us to section 2, where the authors make their first absolutely massive claim that this one simple rule can explain all 4 of the fundamental forces of physics.
And here's their big idea. Get this, because it's a real game changer. They argue that the 4 fundamental forces we all learned about, gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong and weak nuclear forces, they're not different forces at all. They're just different versions of the exact same interaction, just happening at different scales. This table is where the whole model really starts to shine. They take their 3 fundamental states of interaction. Let's call them repel-repel, attract-attract, and attract-repel, and show how they map perfectly onto what we see with each of the 4 forces. For example, look at gravity. The attract-repel state, that gives you a stable orbit. The repel-repel state, that's the expansion of the universe. And the super-attract state, that gives you a black hole. It's this stunningly simple pattern that they claim ties all of physics together. Okay, unifying the 4 fundamental forces, that alone would be the biggest deal in physics ever. Nobel Prizes all around. But they don't stop there. Oh no. In section 3, they take their framework and start applying it to some of the most famous, long-standing mysteries in all of physics.
Let's start with centripetal force. We're usually taught it's some kind of fictitious force that pushes things outward. The Taichu paper says, nope, it's not a force at all, it's freedom. It's the moon's natural, built-in tendency to just travel in a straight line. The Earth's gravity is the power, the constraint that bends that freedom into a circle. You see? An orbit isn't a tug-of-war between 2 forces. It's a beautiful dance between freedom and constraint.
And then there's inertia. Newton told us an object in motion stays in motion, right? But he never really explained why. The Taichu paper offers a breathtakingly simple answer. Inertia isn't some property that matter has, it is freedom. It's the default state of the universe. Things don't need a reason to keep moving. They need a reason, a constraint, to stop.
All right. Next up, they set their sights on one of the most mysterious numbers in all of science, the fine structure constant. It's this number, roughly 1/137, that basically sets the strength of electromagnetism. The legendary physicist Richard Feynman once called it a magic number and said every good physicist should have it taped to their wall and worry about it constantly.
Well, according to this paper, the number isn't magic at all. It's actually just a simple ratio, the amount of constraint, or power, divided by the amount of freedom in any given system. This completely reframes how we think about the forces. Gravity, for instance, isn't just naturally weak. It just operates in this huge cosmic arena with nearly infinite freedom, so its power-to-freedom ratio is tiny. Electromagnetism, on the other hand, works in the super-cramped, constrained environment of an atom, so its P/L ratio is way bigger. So after tackling some of physics' biggest riddles, the authors take their most daring, most audacious leap yet. In this last section, they come full circle, right back to that philosophical idea that started it all. And they argue that the entire universe can be understood as one giant political system.
And this is their grand analogy. It's pretty stunning. The constant expansion of the universe, they say that's basically anarchy, where freedom just runs wild. A black hole, a point of absolute inescapable constraint. That's totalitarianism. And what about a stable, balanced system, like a planet in orbit? Well, that's a constitutional order, a perfect balance of freedom and constraint. Even the fields where particles interact are like our laws and institutions. In this view, the whole political spectrum is just a reflection of this universal ratio of power to freedom.
So the ultimate takeaway, the big conclusion, is this. Everything we see and measure in the universe, from the tiniest particle to the biggest black hole, is just a mathematical expression of one single timeless story, the eternal struggle between freedom and constraint.
To wrap it all up, the authors connect their cutting-edge theory all the way back to ancient wisdom, quoting the Tao Te Ching. Tao begets one, one begets two begets three begets all things. They see their own model, which starts with one principle, freedom, that splits into two forces, which then combine in three ways to create everything, as a modern rediscovery of a truth that sages understood thousands of years ago.
And so, we're left with a pretty profound question. Whether the Taichu formula turns out to be a theory of everything, or maybe just a beautiful metaphor, it forces us to look at the world in a completely new light. Is it possible that all the complexity of our universe, from the laws of physics to the way we build our societies, is just the same simple story, playing out over and over again? The eternal, cosmic dance between freedom and constraint. It's a powerful idea to think about.